I asked permission to show you the Magnolia Alley at the Dallas Arboretum. This goes back to the DeGoyer property before even this was the Dallas Arboretum. These trees are, gosh, they must be 70 years old now, and they're just beautiful. And it's neat how the Arboretum has developed around some of the old gardens here. Come out and see it, you'll love it. Dallas Bloom's going on right now. And right now we're going to go across town. This will be Stephen Chambly, our buddy, talking to Dotty Woodson. We're going to see orchids.
If you've got the blues, Dotty Woodson's greenhouse will take care of that. We'll show it to you next. She's going to tell us a little bit about orchids and the way orchids grow and don't grow and things to do.
Well, first of all, everyone needs to understand that we're growing tropical orchids, although there are Native American orchids. In fact, the state flower of Minnesota is an orchid.
I did not know that.
Yes, and so, you know, we have orchids in the United States, about 247 orchids natural to the United States. But most of the orchids we grow that we get in potted plants from florists or from garden centers or at orchid shows or from orchid societies are tropical orchids, and we use those because they're very, very showy flowers. This is a Phalaenopsis, and they come in very, very large sizes, about the size of the palm of your hand, and also very, very tiny, delicate flowers. Different colors, too, so there's something for everyone. I want you to look up here, Stephen, and see this. This is a Vanda orchid. Look, I mean, this is bigger than my hand, this flower here. Very, very, very fragrant. But one of the things that's neat about orchids is when we look inside the flower, we often look at the different configuration of the sepals and petals. And this particularly, this lip or labellum is where the pollinator is attracted to. And you see this yellow in here? This is what attracts the pollinator. They think this is pollen. But in reality, the pollen is in a capsule here, and the reaction of the insect as it lands there, it is forcing the insect forward. And you see that little trigger hair there? Watch what happens when I trigger that.
Boom.
Look at that. And see, the pollen is right there in that little capsule. And the insect flies away with that pollen. See, it'll stick to my finger. And then when it enters it again, believe it or not, look now, and you see two little hairs there.
Yeah.
A little, and then the the insect goes in again, and if the stigma is receptive, it's real sticky. And the pollen is left right there, and then fertilization can occur. See how it comes off my finger, and it's right there on the stigma, that little sticky surface right there. Most orchids are potted in a bark type material. And so as that bark decomposes, they need more nitrogen because the microorganisms that are decomposing the bark, of course, use that nitrogen. So they need a high nitrogen fertilizer. And companies like Miracle Grow, and there are other companies that are doing this, and they're actually labeling it orchid food. And this is so good for a beginner because they're not going to hunt and look and try to figure out the formula. So this is a nice thing that they're doing. You can usually find it in the stores right where they're selling the orchid plants.
Before we wrap it up, Dotty, I got one more question to ask you. And it has to do with how you water all these things. I know you're not supposed to get the flower wet because you could get disease problems.
Right, botrytis, yes.
So,
what
so
you want to do,
water all this
you
stuff?
want to water the roots and the potting material. Because we have so much calcium in our water, you really don't want to get the foliage wet. You want to increase the humidity around them, but you want to thoroughly water them, then let them dry out in the sink, and then put them back where you can enjoy them. Don't ever let them sit in water, because if you let them sit in water, the potting material wicks the water up. And a lot of people think that that's the way to increase the humidity, but it's not.
I want to thank you very much for your time here. Spectacular greenhouse. I hope that Dotty has given everybody some great tips on orchid culture and how to do this. And certainly, I don't know, I'm an orchid fan.
Thank you, Stephen.